Hi everybody, I'm Jeremy Cordeaux, Peter Clayton's behind the camera. Welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. It never ceases to amaze me that every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday I sit here in the garage, Pete and I, bringing you some thoughts, mind droppings, I don't know what you'd call them. There is never a shortage. Always things, as I sit here on this chair, which many years ago, it's a lovely old green Chesterfield. I must tell you, it's not in the best of condition, but for years, because as you know, one of our sponsors, these lovely people, Elders Fine Art, this was the brochure from their auction a few weeks ago. Elders Fine Art, Jimmy Elder and Helen, one of our sponsors. Their gallery is in Melbourne Street, North Adelaide, and I'll give you a phone number in a little while if you'd like them to come out and give you an appraisal of a piece of art. The reason I bring it up is that years and years ago, when I went to his gallery and I saw these chairs, and I said to him, if ever you want to sell them, give me first refusal. Let me know if you want to sell them. Anyway, years later, oh, it must be, I don't know, 15 years later, he rang me up and he said, Jeremy, I'm going to sell those chairs. Do you want to buy them? And I said, yes. And I didn't do a terribly good deal with them because, you see, I wanted them. And they are, oh, I don't know, they've got character. Now, I think the word is patina, which is another way of saying age, wear. Pete, it's what we have.
Yeah, we're certainly getting there, that's for sure.
We have patina. But I love sitting in this chair. I've got actually the very happy situation that things that I liked years and years ago, I still like today. I'm not fickle, in other words, if I could put it that way. Where do I start with the stuff of the day? Let's start with Alice Springs. Let's go to Central Australia, which is out of control. Alice Springs is the one in the news. Well, I guess you've seen the footage. Now, I understand the urgency to do something. But remember, this is only one town. Tennant Creek. Because I used to, when I was doing the nighttime show on 5AA, I would get calls from people who tolerated their lives barely in Tennant Creek. It was a wild, wild town. It's been a battleground for years, like dozens of other outback towns across Australia. The authorities need a well-placed, politically correct kick in the bum for not addressing this nonsense before. This lawlessness, you know what it is? It's terrorism. People should not be terrorized in their shops and their homes and their streets and their cars. It's local, home-grown terrorism. Pure and simple. The Chief Minister of the Northern Territory says she's had enough. Well, God bless you. I hope so. I hope so, because I think most of Australians had enough as well. But this curfew is only for 2 weeks. What are we? Day 7 or 8 of the curfew. What happens when that's over? No kids under 18 allowed on the streets between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Mind you, they terrorise people at any time of the day or night. I heard various criticisms of this curfew. One guy said, this will really annoy the kids. This will really annoy the kids. Who gives a damn? Another comment was, there is entrenched disadvantage. Is that an excuse? And anyway, where is the disadvantage? Show me where the disadvantage is. maybe their home life. But if they or their parents chose, they would be provided with everything they would need to succeed in life. These are vulnerable children. But you can't rescue them, because then you'd be accused of stealing them. Nothing has changed in all these years. And remember, all of this is not confined to Alice Springs. The media is there and the pictures are there, and that's the focus, but we're talking every outback town in Australia after dark, and sometimes, as I say, in broad daylight. I was reading yesterday of a case where a 5-year-old with friends broke into a house, stole the car keys, and then tried to steal the car. These kids terrorize every community in the country. Put me in charge, and I would fix it in a week. But you'd better look the other way, because I would not tolerate the woke or the politically correct criticism of me any more than I'd tolerate the terrorists. And I don't care whether the terrorist is 5 years old or 50 years old. I personally believe anyone could fix this problem if he wanted to. But you have to stop tiptoeing through the tulips. Deal with it. You would have the backing of every fair-minded Australian, black or white, in this entire country. And I'm sure you'd have the support of the elders. There is talk about the age at which kids should be allowed to have a smartphone. Pete, what do you think?
Oh, look, they don't belong in schools, I know that much. Look, we got by without them. I just don't understand it. It's nonsense, yeah. When they can afford to buy their own, I'd say.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, we need to have the debate. We need to talk about it, and we'll throw that out there on Friday morning, jeremycordeaux.com. See what you think. I agree with Pete. We got on and got through most of our lives without a smartphone. But anyway, my smartphone number at the dining room table is, I'll give it to you slowly. I'll repeat it once we're on the air, of course, but if you grab a pen and write it down, 0491 65 68 60. And I give it to you slowly, not because you're slow, but because I hate people who rattle off phone numbers and imagine I can just get them down. Takes me that length of time to find a damn pencil on a piece of paper. 0491 65 68 60. The experts I've heard so far seem to think that 14 is the best age. Well, I don't know many 14s. What's a smartphone cost? I think it's about $1,000 or $900 or something, isn't it, Pete?
I would think so, yes. Yeah.
Well, how many 14-year-old kids could afford that? And as we say, millions of kids have got through their education and their teens without smartphones. There's no doubt that they are a distraction, but useful. And I've got no doubt that they're going to get more useful in the future. There's nothing that you can't do on a smartphone, to use a double negative. The technology, the features, the apps, amazing. But what's that going to do to young developing brains? You see, if I was doing this story, I would probably try to talk to a neurologist, a brain surgeon, because, you know, the brain is a plastic thing. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. We have all kinds of smart devices. You know, we've got desktops, laptops. But what about the good old-fashioned necktop, the human brain? Means like we sort of come quite prepared to tackle anything in life. We've got all the equipment, in other words. But, you know, like muscles, the brain has to be used. The attempt by the federal government to rush through legislation that would prevent another High Court decision, which, as you know, ultimately turned known and dangerous criminals out onto our streets. Oh, there was an attempt to put ankle bracelets on them and keep an eye on them, but I think that was a total failure. Now, this latest attempt, because they suspect there is another batch on its way, the attempt has been stopped by the Liberal Party. Now, I know what you're thinking. Reading between the lines, and I'm not a particularly political animal, but I reckon they feel that this is Labor's Achilles heel. Coming up to the next election, their Achilles heel. Next election about a year away, they probably realise that they have to do something to stop another 149 criminals walking free, which is fine. But the Libs would want to do that, but that's not going to stop them playing politics, putting a spoke in Labor's wheel, hanging them out to dry. They put themselves, meaning the government, in this vulnerable position because they had this sort of emergency legislation power. They could have prepared something like this before the last High Court decision. They had plenty of warning, plenty of time, but they didn't do it because, as you know, and I've said it before, I don't believe their heart, the government's heart, is in border protection. So the Liberal Party is simply saying, bring it on, we're not going to help save your bacon. It's smart politics, but it's definitely not helpful and not what you'd call patriotism. But here's the truth. There is no point in calling ourselves a country if we can't determine who comes and who should go from this country. What is the point of having a government or a High Court? The rule of law? We either control our borders or we don't. For God's sake, what's the High Court thinking about? What were you going to lean around the camera and say, Pete?
I was going to say it's going to backfire as far as I'm concerned if the Liberals don't support this. We've got to stop these people being released.
Yeah, but they're playing smart politics while you're playing patriot.
Yeah.
I know. You've probably seen it already, or you've heard about it maybe. Pete, it's a good story. In Sicily, they've come up with a very interesting idea, which we could certainly take a lesson from. Beautiful little hilltop towns, villages in Sicily. Just beautiful. Postcard stuff. But these villages are dying. Old stone houses, cobblestone streets, wrought iron balconies. It is picture perfect, but decaying. Funny, when you leave a house, it seems to deteriorate almost immediately. A house without people, it does decay. So what they've decided to do is build more modern places outside the old villages and sell the cottages for, believe it or not, €1 each. Bargain, Pete?
Well, I'm thinking about it. I do like Italy.
€1. Now, can you imagine buying a whole house in a beautiful, picturesque little Sicilian village for €1? That's something like $2 Australian. Huh. I can hear you saying, what is the catch? There is a catch. You have to renovate the property within 3 years. And that could cost you between $15,000 and $300,000. But, heck, still bloody cheap. Sicily is, of course, the birthplace of the mafia. You know that. So, you know, when somebody comes along from a Sicilian village and says, have I got a deal for you? I can understand a little skepticism. But I think for everything I've seen of this idea, it's good. It's an absolutely wonderful idea and something that we could take a lesson from here in Australia. Our outback towns are not growing. I don't know that I'd go so far as to say they're dying. I guess some of them are dying. But this would be a wonderful way to breathe new life into our towns. Now, if you can't afford to go to Sicily, or you don't want to go to Sicily, and you can't afford a place in the city, but you could pay, say, $5 for a lovely old weatherboard cottage in outback Australia. Wow. I mean, Pete, with a bit of land
and a horse
and a hitching rail,
yeah,
and a horse trough. I bet they'd have a horse trough. Yeah. How much time have we got?
Not much. 3 minutes.
Okay, all right, just one more story. They have undertaken a review of the NDIS. Now, I pricked up my ears when I heard this because I thought, well, it probably needs more than a review. But at least they're looking at it. But it seems the outcome of this review, the outcome of this review was only going to make things worse. We know that the NDIS is being rorted. We know that. We know that because the Minister, Bill Shorten, announced, I'll quote, "The NDIS is in the hands of organised crime." Speaking of the mafia. Why would you announce it? Why don't you fix it? Start arresting people. Bill? Huh? Not a bad idea? But you know what they're doing? They're sending out a letter to every NDIS recipient, 700,000 of them, 700,000 letters, setting out how to avoid the scams, how to spot and how to avoid the scams. So, I see, the onus is now on the client to fix the problem. So Bill can't fix the organised crime, he's asking you to. How stupid. They're also going to scrap the system whereby people were diagnosed medically as to whether they complied with the requirements that justified their belonging to the NDIS. They had to be medically diagnosed, judged as to what service they needed. They're moving that to a system whereby the client simply determines what service he or she wants. Don't you think that may open the floodgates even to more rorting, if it's possible? God help us. God help us. What do I do with my glasses? Pete? Oh, there.
Yeah, there.
Okay. Some birthdays, and then you got a song.
Oh, we might put that Kathy Mateo one on.
Okay. Yes. The Emmylou Harris was great.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
We had some problems the other day when I think it was maybe that the whole show was too long or something.
Well, we don't know. It might have been because the Shania Twain song was copyright. I don't know, but
something went wrong, and I had lots of calls from, well, messages. Now that's the other thing I've got to do something about, because I used to be able to sit down and reply to people who sent me messages here in the Court of Public Opinion on the Facebook page. There was a little button at the bottom of the comment that was sent in by so many people, and I thank you for all your comments. There was a little button that said reply. So I just pressed reply and made a comment or thanked you or whatever. There's no reply button now. So I have no idea what to do to reply. Perhaps I have to do it generically and tell you thank you for all your comments. But happy birthday if you're having a birthday or a wedding anniversary. April the 3rd. Christ was crucified on this day at the age of 33. According to astronomer Humphreys and Waddington, about whom I know absolutely nothing. 1922 on this day, April 3, Doris Day, American singer, animal welfare activist. I had the pleasure of speaking to her a few times. The girl next door, they used to call her. Pillow Talk, the man who knew too much. Was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. She died in 2019, but she was born on this day in 1922. Eddie Murphy, American comedian. He was born in Brooklyn, 1961. Jane Goodall, primatologist. There's a word. Primatologist and anthropologist and writer. I've spoken with her as well. Gorillas in the Mist and all of those wonderful things. She was a wonderful guest. I think she's still with us. She was born in 1934 on this day. 1941, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill warns the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin that a German invasion was imminent. 1941. Elvis Presley on this day in 1960 records It's Now or Never, one of his greats. And he also recorded Are You Lonesome Tonight? He recorded at the RCA studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Mariah Carey overtakes Elvis Presley's record of 17 number one US hits with her 18th, Touch My Body. Only the Beatles have more than 20 such hits, number ones. That was this day in 1908. Australia formally adopts the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. That was thanks to Mr. Rudd. Nothing wrong with that, just the zealots who were involved. First airplane flight over Mount Everest on this day in 1933. 1924, Marlon Brando, American actor, Streetcar Named Desire, The Godfather, Superman, On the Waterfront. God only knows why he did Superman. They paid him $1 million for, I think it was, what was it, 2 lines? Well, I guess you'd be mad not to, wouldn't you?
I think so.
He played Superman's father, you remember? Marlon Brando. He was born in Omaha, Nebraska. He died in 2004. 1924 he was born. We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for viewing the Court of Public Opinion. We'll leave you with Kathy Mattea. Peter Clayton and I will be back tomorrow. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Believe in yourself, and goodbye for now.